Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. So, let's talk about Baldur's Gate 3, of course. This video will be coming before the last video of the playthrough. It will be around episode 8, and the thing is, I'm not stopping playing because I already played through all the content, or because there isn't enough content, or because something along those lines. It's more or less because, well, I kind of already formed my opinion about it, and I want to wait to play more when there is more larger update and we get more content. But right now I have a fairly good view about the game, and it's still in the fence, more or less, because some of the problems I have can be fixed because this is early access, and I'm not talking about bugs or stuff like that. Although there will be a moment on the end of the video that I will comment about performance and stuff like that. But the other things that I do have problem with are things that can be solved or added as options during the development. Like or not, this game is gonna be in development to probably end of 2021 to 20 beginning of 22, more or less an era of development during early access. So, how about we start it? Well, I really enjoyed playing the game. But I do have a couple of problems. And before we delve into Baldur's Gate, I need to talk about the developer previous game, Divinity Original Sims 2. I bought that game when it released on early access, and I play for joy. And well, I really enjoy more or less the gameplay, and said, okay, when the game release, I'm gonna pick it up. Then the game release, and I didn't finish. I try another time, and I didn't finish again. Definitive Edition came, same problem. The only time that I really finished the game was a little bit after Relics of whatever came out, and the reason was because there was enough mods and class mods that mitigate my biggest problem with that game. So, after For Joy, you will discover this game has a peculiar way of handling combat, which is the floor is lava. And after a certain point, the floor became radioactive lava. Very enjoyable. Now, by the fact of many of the mods that I install in the game mitigate most that on my side, only allocating uh, abilities and spells that would create this gigantic environmental mass during the game for the enemy, except during melee combat, because when you hit somebody, blood comes out, and if the blood that's radioactive blood, or cursed blood, it will again, it will spread and you will have the same problem. It does disencourage a little bit of the melee combat, but we are talking about a more or less translation from D&D to a computer version. So D&D does have a fairly reasonable amount of rules about area of effect. I will say it's been almost a year, a little bit more, since I played the last time 5th edition. So I was wrong about a lot of stuff. Now, I thought that the game would fairly lower this environmental mass, the floor is lava style of gameplay, and I was wrong. I will say it's less than it was on Divinity, but I think it's less because right about now we have a very few, we don't have a large pool of spells or any type of things, so because of that we don't still see the full extent of the abilities. Now, I will say something. I'm not advocating to cut this feature. I'm advocating to give the options for players to choose how they want. A long time ago, one of my DMs said, the best way to DM it's not to always enforce every rule of the book, but it is to adapt the rule of the book to make a better game. So every time that I complain more or less about something, see that as a feedback to add an option, not to transform that as the main way of the game. Maybe when you start a new game, you have game rules options. Then you can change during gameplay, before you start a game, or during gameplay. Who knows? I would say then to easily mitigate that would be to spells that don't have an area of effect. When they hit the target, they don't generate the environmental effect. For example, Ignis, there is a cantrip, a very weak spell that really is just supposed to hit the target and that's all. But in the game, for example, it does generate a adjacent fire. So, for example, if the Ignis hits the target, it doesn't generate the environment. But if you choose to use Ignis on the ground, because that's the thing, on the game allows you to use a spell on the ground, not on a physical enemy target or a friendly, for that matter. So allow you the player to choose that. Again, this has an option in the game configuration, or as I said, in a new configuration like game rules that can mitigate and will accommodate both sides of play. People who, yes, enjoy the more floor is lava gameplay that has then come out after combat. And of course, it does accommodate people who are more or less wanting a. I don't want to say a one-to-one translation from D&D because I think there is not a lot of people who want a one-to-one translation, but you get my drift. Someone who wants a more close to the rule set, and I would say then I would be one of those, but yeah, I would prefer having this option. Still talking a little bit about combat, I want to say about the disengage slash jump option. Those are all rolled into one, and I really enjoy the fact that you have the jump option, but I would highly believe then jump and disengage should be two different abilities. While disengage is not jumping, you should be something in, well, you consume a lot more of your movement, but allow you to get out of the of an attack of opportunity for the target. That would be my go-to. And jump still would cause attack of opportunity, but allow you to transfer this territory or the ground easily, quote unquote. Now, another two actions that I would give place on the action bar during combat would be help, probably. Not the help that you already have, like revive, stabilize a party member, but I'm saying literally helping. On D&D 5e, you have something that allows you to add your modifier for your party member next roll and dodge, because well, sometimes you don't have anything to do and you just dodge. You add a little bit on your AC or something along those lines. I don't remember exactly how it works on D&D, but I remember that was a mechanic. Besides that, I think combat is more or less solid. Of course, a little bit of balance here and there, and well, I would prefer then the chat with the dice roll will be open already, like already be open on the corner of the screen, not something that I need to click. More or less, so I can know how bad I'm doing or how well I'm doing. I think it's funny that, for example, when you get a natural 20, the game shows you that roll, and I think that is a very interesting thing. Now, talking about rolls, there is one more problem than I do have. It's a fairly minor problem, but a problem nonetheless. When I started to play, I really got into the mindset of D&D, and let me give you an example. People who play the game already will know what where the mistake on this example will be. But if you're coming from D&D, you will have you may suffer the same thing. So you have the roll to do during dialogue. The target number is 5. You roll a 2 and you have a +3 on your modifier. And you fail the target. And you fail the test. Where is the problem? Well, on D&D, normally, the thing is, dice roll plus modifier against the target. On Baldur's Gate is target minus your modifier against your dice roll. And the tooltip does kinda say that, but it still utilizes the +2 as the modifier close to the die. So on a glance or without really going to read the tooltip, you may not understand well. So two things that I would do: give the option to maintain the D&D style that allows the +2 on the dice roll, maintain the target head it is, and show just the dice roll plus whatever is your modifier or your any bonus then you have, because that's the thing. Bonus does count to detract from the target, not from upping your dice roll. Or on the tooltip, show in green like modifier -2 target, or yeah, modifier -2 target, and put like from charisma modifier from you being proficient on that skill check. So that would be like just some small thing I would do. That's the only thing that I would do has a real change. But also I would give the options for people to choose the quote unquote old style D&D rule set of like, oh, show me the pure dice, then edit the modifiers that I have, and show the target as it is unmodified. A minor, this is really my most minor complaint. It's something that you can go accustomed to, but it's something that I would prefer to have. Talking about skill checks and dialogue options and stuff like that, make the dialogue a little bit more dynamic, because right now the dialogue is really centric on the character that you have. Like the character that you start the conversation will be the character who will carry the dialogue from beginning to end. And that is a problem, I think. Sometimes, of course, the AI companions will talk, but they will talk only on script things. They won't have the ability to try to roll for things. And that may cause something. For example, normally I start dialogue with my character. But for example, if there is something and I know another character in my party has better stats to do so, why can't like I say to that character to intervene, or why can I give that command? And before anyone asks, oh, there is a icon on the bottom of the left screen calling swap character that puts you on the shoes of of other character, not change the character who is leading the conversation. And before anyone says, "Oh, this is metagaming," you probably play D&D, so you know that people tend to do that. People will choose the character who has the better chance to succeed some on the role to talk about. You always get, most of the time, the cleric or the paladin or will be the one who will do the religion check. The arcane class are going to be the ones who do arcane checks, and so on and so forth. It's a natural thing, then I think it should be better translated in the game than it is right now. And it does make the conversation be a more dynamic, so for the entire party is involved. And for multiplayer, I would even go a little bit further. Allow everyone who's playing the game to vote for who's the player that will be doing the skill check. For example, you have two in an example of a stupid party with everyone is fighter. Everyone made it a fighter, and it does have a need of a strength check. Allow players to vote or do a dice roll to see who would do the check. Or for example, in a less standing, oh, people have two fighters and they have almost they one has better stats or something like that. Allow the party to decide who's going to be that doing that check. And that maybe even translates to the single player where you the player will choose who will from your party who will be doing the check. Besides that, I will say the game is on the mostly right track. I don't know if I do enjoy that much the fact that the beginning of Baldur's Gate 3 does resemble a lot the beginning of Divinity Original Sin. You're in a crash of a ship of some sort. You have something and you need to get rid of. So you have multiple options on this small island to try to get rid of that, and you will want to get out of this island eventually. Like it's very similar when in Divinity was the color, here is the Mind Flayer tadpole, and this thing of like getting this off of you is what more or less unite the party, while in the same way it was to get out of the island was again something that does unite still unite the party on that, but you see, I would prefer to have a more. I hope we have a very more different storyline than we had on Divinity. For example, the fact in both of the times a supernatural magical thing, and I know fantasy, so it's a minor complaint again, saves you from death after the shipwreck, aka in the first time where your patron deity. Now we still don't know because we still don't know the game, and maybe it is your patron deity again. As I said, I believe the game is on the right track. Another thing that I would say is even if the game is supposed to resemble D&D, I can understand people saying that does not need to be a translation one to one, and I kinda agree at some part. I would hope, of course, then that is made for the better, not for the worst. For example, multi-class. I don't know if or what if multi-class will be implemented or how it would be implemented. And I really, really hope it is. Because, well, yes, the first two playthroughs maybe you do for storytelling. After that, it will be only for the. You will start doing to see what stupid builds you can come up with. So, multi-class, I think it is a more or less must. And for more than I give shit to 5e on my group of the tabletop, I have to say I kind of enjoy the multi-class way they do. Allow the player to freely multi-class. Do not make that it is a fit. Does not make like that. Allow players to multi-class in the same way than the D&D rule set does. Let players build the most stupid characters they want. And that goes for class. I know, this is Forgotten Realms. And Forgotten Realms does have a very specific rule set, uh, class set. But I would say do not be afraid to translate the other rules, the other classes from outside of Forgotten Realms to the game. And the reason why I say that is, again, because fun. I would prefer have the ability to, like, I doubt anyone would really complain of, oh, I think it's bullshit and people can make an artificer on Baldur's Gate 2. Baldur's Gate 3. I doubt that would be a thing. Give the players the option, and I don't know, maybe optional. Again, put on the game rules. Allow players to choose some, besides the basic classes, then the game will have, which ones they want to exclude from their own character creation, for whatever reason. Maybe if, I don't know. I remember there was a DM mode on the on Divinity Original Sin, and that can be one of the things then the DM can do because well, that's a very interesting way to play. Would be a very interesting way to play this game. Besides that, I think the game is going into a more or less positive, depending on how they handle. I will say more options, more classes. Don't be afraid of putting classes that are for Forgotten Realms. Don't be afraid of putting subclasses there aren't Forgotten Realms. Same goes for races and stuff like that. Make a DLC if you fucking really want about it. Some people would pay for it, probably. Now, in the end, as I already said, I'm fairly positive. One of my only negatives is something that it can't be fixed. It already happened, and there is no way to get around of it. I don't know how much of this is because of the developer. I don't know how much of this is because Wizards of the Coast or the publisher or who the fuck ever want take that decision. I disagree the fact that $60 of early access should be the price for this game. Because one thing it is, uh, if you're asking full price, more or less I would expect a certain level of polish. The level of polish, it's not in this game. 2 minutes of loading screen between the crash of the ship to the loading of the island, and still facial animations during the cutscene that follows, the textures and things like that didn't load right. The performance is a little bit roughy, very rough around the edges. Uh, Texture not loading properly, or something. Textures are not loading properly. Sometimes, for example, the eyes clip to the face, hair clip to the equipment. I would highly expect, because again, we are paying full price, $60 on the game, that we had a more or less some polish that we didn't have in this time. Right now, there is nothing that can be done. It's a complaint. It's a mute complaint. The release already happened. We already have the game there. Who decides to go in paid? Who decided then that it was bullshit? Didn't pay. I did pay because I wanted to see how the game goes. I will be coming back and doing early looks. Each major update, as long as I'm still alive to do so, which after each day's jokes aside, that's the thing. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's more or less it. Right now, I would say only grab the game if you really, really wants to try. Because it's rough around the edges. There is a reasonable amount of content, but there isn't that much content, like in gameplay wise, class wise, and features like that. And it needs a reasonable amount of balance. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for now. See you next time. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. This was the video. If you enjoyed, leave it a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike. If you have anything to say, please leave a comment. And if you want to see what the hell is gonna be coming next on this mess, subscribe. And see you guys on the next episode.